What happens when the primitive species you spent centuries oppressing finally decides it's had enough? What happens when a single, unforgivable act of brutality ignites a firestorm of vengeance, fueled by technology beyond your wildest nightmares? This is the epic, brutal saga of humanity's awakening, from silent subjugation to becoming the conquerors of a galaxy that dared to underestimate them. It all began with one child, one shot, and the unleashing of the legendary Sigma fleet. The spark of vengeance. The human child's brain splattered across the gleaming Galactic Council floor, a grotesque crimson stain on what was meant to be a symbol of order. The alien executioner's disruptor hissed once more, a cold, final punctuation mark to an act of unspeakable barbarity. That innocent blood, so unjustly spilled, didn't just pool. It ignited an ancient fury within humanity, unleashing the full, devastating wrath of Earth's most ancient warships. Hidden for centuries, these colossal vessels had awaited this very moment of betrayal. On the bridge of the HSS Indomitable, orbiting a now vulnerable Earth, Captain Logan Carter stood rigid, his fists and jaw clenched so tight they ached. The live feed had just cut out, but the repulsive image of the Ithorian counselor Xanth lingered. Xanth's smug, craggy face had filled the screen moments before, announcing the Council's unilateral ban on all human faster-than-light FTL travel, effectively caging mankind within their home system. Then, for the alleged crime of a human boy vandalizing some alien shrine, a child, no less, who had been crying, they had brutally executed him. "Let this be a lesson to your primitive species," Xanth had sneered, his voice dripping with condescension. "Humanity's disobedience will no longer be tolerated." The feed went black. Logan's voice was a hoarse whisper, barely audible over the hum of the ship. They killed a child. Commander Hawkins, a man usually as stoic as Logan himself, gripped the rail beside him, knuckles bone white. "What are your orders, sir?" A cold, volcanic fury simmered in Logan's eyes as he turned to his crew, his gaze sweeping across their grim faces. "Signal the fleet, power up the Nova cannons, plot an FTL jump directly to the Galactic Council headquarters." This was the day humanity had long dreaded, yet secretly prepared for. The day the aliens would finally bare their true fangs and cross a line from which there could be no return. The day that would see humanity's homeworld threatened and the Council's betrayal of galactic law brought to a bloody reckoning. The day had come to make the alien aggressors pay in blood, to unleash the full, terrifying might of Earth's most powerful warships. Vessels that had not seen battle in centuries, ships that would shake the galaxy to its core this day and burn the Council's worlds to ashes. The revelation of the Sigma fleet. Deep within the heart of the Rocky Mountains, the very stone groaned, cracked, and parted. Camouflaged doors, vast and imposing, swung open with a deep rumble. Captain Logan Carter marched down into the hidden depths, flanked by his highest-ranking Earth Defense Force officers. The long concrete halls were swallowed by shadow, lit only by the flickering, sickly glow of fluorescent bulbs. Their boot heels clicked a rhythmic, stark echo on the cold cement as the group approached the corridor's end. There, an immense blast door stood sentinel, solid steel several feet thick, a silent barrier to a monumental secret. Logan stepped forward, his resolve etched onto his face, placing his palm against the biometric scanner. It beeped, a quick, almost imperceptible sound of recognition, and then, slowly, ponderously, with a deep groan of ancient machinery, the door began to grind open. It swung wide, revealing a cavernous underground hangar shrouded in oppressive shadow. Logan hit a switch on the wall, and with a sudden, brilliant snap, floodlights blazed to life, banishing the darkness and illuminating the secret space within. The officers gasped, their eyes going wide, then wider still. Filling the colossal hangar were rows upon rows of warships, their hulls forged from a strange, iridescent metal that glimmered under the harsh lights, almost alive. The ships were angular, impossibly sleek, and utterly predatory in their design. They were like nothing any of the men had ever seen before, a stark departure from the blocky, utilitarian vessels of the EDF. Logan turned to face his men, his expression hard as granite, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. "Gentlemen, allow me to introduce you to the Sigma Fleet, built in secret during the early days of human space exploration and hidden away as a last resort. When the Council confined us to our home system, they had no idea of the ace up our sleeve." Commander Hawkins, still awestruck, stepped closer to the nearest vessel, reaching out to run a reverent hand along its prow, his brow furrowed in disbelief. "I thought the Sigma Fleet was just a myth." Logan shook his head, a faint, grim smile touching his lips. "The Sigma Fleet is very real, Commander, and it's time to show the galaxy exactly what human ingenuity and determination can accomplish. The Council wants to confine us to Earth? Let's see how they like it when we show up on their doorstep with technology centuries ahead of their own. With the power of the Sigma Fleet, we will make them pay for their crimes and secure humanity's place among the stars." The gathered officers exchanged glances, their faces hardening with steely resolve. As one, they nodded. "It is time to remind the galaxy that humanity bows to no one," Logan said, his voice ringing through the hangar, echoing off the gleaming hulls. "We have been pushed too far, and now we push back. Today, we bring the fight to the Council's door. Today, they learn the consequences of their betrayal. Today, we unleash the Sigma Fleet." The reckoning begins. Light years away, Counselor Xanth lounged on a floating divan in his lavish quarters, the very picture of decadent, self-satisfied power. The craggy-faced Athorian sipped a glowing green liquor, savoring the slow burn as it slid down his throat. The drink was potent enough to strip paint off a starship hull, but to Xanth it might as well have been water. An air chime sounded, and Xanth glanced up languidly as a holoscreen winked on. The face of Yik, his diminutive aide, swam into view. Yik's normally gray skin was flushed an anxious violet. "Counselor, our long-range sensors have detected a large fleet of unknown vessels entering our system at high speeds," Yik said, his voice tight with suppressed alarm. Xanth waved a dismissive hand, his many rings glinting in the soft light. "So, send a patrol to intercept them. Probably just some upstart race trying to make a name for themselves." Yik shook his head, the movement jerky with barely suppressed panic. "Sir, the patrol is already gone. They were destroyed the moment they entered weapons range of the unknown ships. We didn't even have time to get a visual on what attacked them." Xanth sat bolt upright, his drink sloshing over the side of the goblet, staining the pristine divan. "What? How is that possible? What kind of weapons are they using?" He lurched to his feet, striding over to an ornate control panel set into the wall. His fingers flew over the interface, punching in a code. The room darkened as a massive holographic display burst to life, filling the air with a glowing star map of the Athorian system. A cluster of angry red dots, far too many, were speeding toward the central blue orb that represented the Athorian home world. Xanth stared, his mind struggling to comprehend the sheer number of incoming ships. "By the gods, there are hundreds of them," he whispered, a tremor in his voice. "How could an unknown race possibly have a fleet that size without us knowing about it?" An icy tendril of dread, cold and sharp, curled in Xanth's gut, a horrifying suspicion beginning to crystallize in his mind. He turned to the holoscreen, meeting Yik's terrified gaze. "Yik, tell me everything you can about the configuration and capabilities of those ships. Leave nothing out." Xanth's voice was deathly calm, belying the sheer terror churning inside him. Because if he was right about the identity of these invaders, then he had just made the gravest mistake of his life, a mistake that might very well spell the end of everything he knew. Yik's report was far from encouraging. The ships were angular and sleek, their hulls composed of an unknown iridescent alloy that defied scans. They moved with impossible grace and speed, their formations flawless, and their weapons, by the ancestors, their weapons. Plasma cannons that tore through shields like paper, missiles that moved faster than the eye could track and never missed, some strange directed energy beam that sliced ships into pieces with surgical precision. But worst of all was the symbol emblazoned on the prows of the incoming ships. A symbol that every species in the galaxy had grown to fear, even if only through whispered rumors and half-remembered legends. The symbol of the Terran Dominion. Humanity had returned. And this time, they had come not as explorers or diplomats, but as conquerors, armed with technology beyond the Athorians' wildest nightmares. Xanth stumbled back from the display, his heart hammering a panic staccato beat against his ribs. He thought of the human child, cut down on the floor of the council chambers on his order, the very catalyst for this invasion. He had gravely miscalculated. He knew that now. They all had. And now his people would pay the price for his arrogance. As the Terran fleet drew inexorably closer, Xanth found himself wondering if there was any force in the universe that could stop the oncoming storm. Somehow, he doubted it. Humanity's hammer. On the view screen, Xanth's bulging eyes darted across the readouts, the numbers and symbols blurring together into a maelstrom of impending doom. The human ships had vanished from the screens, as if they'd never been there at all. But the counselor knew better. They were out there, waiting, invisible predators, ready to strike. He slammed a webbed fist on the console, barking orders in the guttural Athorian language. "Surround them! Box them in! And destroy them!" The Athorian fleet lurched into motion, the ponderous capital ships straining to outmaneuver their nimble, unseen adversaries. They spread out in a vast sphere, weapons bristling from every surface as they sought to entrap the Terran Sigma fleet. On the Indomitable's bridge, Logan leaned back in his command chair, a grim smile playing across his lips as he watched the aliens' clumsy attempt at tactics. Beside him, Samir frowned at the display. "They're trying to hem us in, cut off our escape routes. Should I order the fleet to pull back?" Logan shook his head, his eyes glittering with anticipation. "Negative. They want to play at being the superior species? Let's show them what humanity is truly capable of. All ships." He leaned forward, keying the fleet-wide comm. "Initiate Ghost Protocol." A chorus of acknowledgements lit up the comm board. On the view screen, the Sigma fleet seemed to ripple and distort, the contours of the ships blurring and then fading from view entirely as the advanced stealth field engaged. In seconds, the human vessels had vanished from both visual and sensor detection, wraiths haunting the void. Xanth gaped at his displays in disbelief, his crew erupting into a cacophony of panicked shouts and warning klaxons. The human ships were just gone, as if they had never existed. "Impossible!" the counselor roared. But his words dissolved into a scream as the Ithorian flagship convulsed under a titanic impact. Sparks geysered from shattered consoles, the deck pitching wildly beneath Xanth's feet. All around, the rest of the Ithorian armada was faring no better. Blooms of fire and shrapnel burst from a dozen ships as the first salvo from the invisible Sigma fleet found its mark. The alien shields flared and died under the onslaught, their hull plates crumpling like foil as the undetectable projectiles slammed home. Xanth staggered to the flagship's viewport, his heart pounding a terrified rhythm in his chest. He watched in mute horror as his fleet was torn apart, piece by piece, the human weapons striking with merciless precision. On the Indomitable, Logan observed the one-sided slaughter with cold satisfaction. Let the aliens feel the same fear and helplessness they had inflicted on so many. Let them reap the bitter harvest of their cruelty and arrogance.
"Cease fire," he ordered, after a long moment, the words heavy with finality. As quickly as it had begun, the barrage halted, leaving the once proud Ithorian fleet shattered and leaderless. Smoldering hulks drifted in the silent void, the pitiful remnants of the Council's might. Logan stared at Xanth through the comm screen, his gaze searing in its intensity. When he spoke, each word was edged in steel. "Look upon your fleet now, Counselor. See how it has been humbled, how your vaunted power has been proven to be nothing more than a brittle facade. Just as you held the life of that innocent child in your hands, so now I hold the fate of your entire species." He leaned forward, his face filling the screen, his eyes boring into the trembling Ithorian. "I want you to feel that fear, Xanth. I want you to know, in the depths of your soul, how close you are to annihilation. How easy it would be for me to give the order and consign your wretched kind to oblivion." The human smiled then, a cold and terrible thing, devoid of warmth or mercy. "But I won't, not yet. I spare you now for one purpose only: to be a messenger. You will return to your council, and you will tell them what transpired here. You will make them understand that the age of their dominion is at an end. Humanity will no longer tolerate the yoke of oppression. We will claim our rightful place among the stars, and we will brook no opposition. Those who stand against us will be ground to dust and cast into the stellar winds." He raised a hand in mocking benediction. "Go now, Xanth. Run back to your masters with your tail between your legs, and pray that when next we meet, I am feeling merciful. For your sake, and for the sake of your entire race." The transmission cut off, leaving Xanth to stare at a blank screen, the taste of ashes thick on his tongue. The galaxy had changed this day, and he had been the catalyst, the path forward.
Logan terminated the transmission with a curt nod, Xanth's humiliated face vanishing from the view screen. He turned to face his bridge crew, his brow furrowed. "This is only the start. The Council won't let this stand. They'll gather their forces and hit us with everything they've got." Samir spoke up, his fingers flying over his console. "Captain, if the Council unites the other species against us, even the Sigma fleet could be outmatched. We've got the tech advantage, but they have the numbers." Logan nodded, his tactical mind already mapping out potential strategies. "Then we need to level the playing field. Helm, plot a course for the Vorax Nebula. Max burn." The bridge crew exchanged uncertain glances, but swiftly leapt into action, hands darting over controls. The deck thrummed beneath their feet as the fleet jumped to hyperspace, the stars blurring into streaks of light as they hurtled through the void. Logan gathered his officers in the briefing room, the holographic display casting a ghostly blue glow over their faces. "The Vorax Nebula is Voran territory. They used to be a powerful warrior culture before the Council conquered them centuries ago. They've been toiling as slaves ever since. Our intel suggests they're primed for an uprising, and an alliance with them could give us the manpower we need." The fleet dropped back into real space on the outskirts of the nebula, its swirling purple and blue gases painting the view screen. The sensors pinged with contacts, a network of Voran mining outposts, each one crawling with armed Council overseers. Logan's lips curled into a predatory smile. "All ships disengage cloak." The human fleet shimmered into existence, the sudden appearance of the gleaming warships sending the overseers into a panicked frenzy. Within minutes, the Council ships were in full retreat, their engines flaring as they fled, leaving the bewildered but hopeful Voran workers staring out at the human vessels. Logan opened a channel to the largest outpost, and a weathered Voran face filled the screen, his scales marred by old battle scars. The alien regarded Logan warily. The unlikely alliance. "Earth, we are here to offer you a chance to break your chains and take vengeance on your enslavers." Logan's voice resonated with the weight of his conviction. The Voran leader's eyes, deep-set and ancient, narrowed into suspicious slits. Distrust was etched into every line of his scarred body, a legacy of centuries of oppression. "And why should we trust you, human? Your species are newcomers to the galactic stage. What could you possibly do for us?" His tone was a low growl, a challenge. In response, Logan transmitted the footage. The chaotic, desperate confrontation with Xanth, the swift, brutal rout of the Athorian armada, it all played out on the Voran screen. As the Voran leader watched, his eyes widened, disbelief slowly, reluctantly giving way to a fierce, hungry gleam. When the recording finished, a profound silence hung between them, broken only by the hum of the comm link. He looked at Logan with a newfound, grudging respect. "You've shown your strength, Earther," the Voran rumbled, the suspicion in his voice now replaced by a chilling pragmatism. "What do you want from us?" Logan leaned forward, his voice low, intense, and utterly devoid of artifice. "I propose an alliance. Fight alongside us, and together we will shatter the Council's grip on the galaxy, not just for humanity, but for all those they've ground under their heel." The Voran threw his head back and laughed, a harsh, guttural sound that was less amusement and more a primal roar of bloodlust and the promise of violence. "You have a deal, human. The Voran will stand with you, and together we will savor the taste of the Council's terror. As the screen went dark, Logan turned to his crew, a controlled fire burning in his eyes. The game pieces are moving into position. Prepare the fleet. It's time we bring the fight to the Council's doorstep. The blinding blow. The combined human and Voran fleet tore out of hyperspace at the fringes of the Galactic Council's home system, a densely packed cluster of heavily populated worlds and immense orbital installations. Instantly, warning klaxons wailed across the entire system as the Council's formidable defenses came online. Before them, an almost impenetrable barrier of warships assembled around the central planet, the very heart of the Council's dominion. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Logan surveyed the gathered enemy forces with a discerning, calculating gaze. They've pulled back their fleets from across the galaxy. The core of their military strength is here. Samir scowled at the tactical readout, a frustrated sigh escaping him. Even with the Voran numbers, Captain, we're still outmatched in raw firepower. Logan nodded grimly, which is why we won't be engaging them head-on. We have to be tactical about this. He keyed the fleet-wide comm. All vessels, commence Phase 1. The human and Voran ships began to maneuver, not directly toward the waiting Council armada, but in a broad, sweeping arc, skirting the system's perimeter. Their target? A massive space station bristling with sensor arrays and communication antennae. That's their primary system-wide comms and surveillance nexus, Logan explained, his voice tight with anticipation. We knock that out, we blind them, and sow chaos in their coordination. As the Allied fleet closed on the station, the Council warships guarding it accelerated to intercept. Just before they entered firing range, the human vessels shimmered and multiplied, each ship abruptly fracturing into a dozen mirror images. The Council ships wavered, their formations faltering as their scanners were inundated with false returns. By the time they realized the ruse, it was too late. The true human ships, shrouded by the sensor phantoms, were already on top of them.
The void around the station erupted into a vicious melee. The Council vessels fought valiantly, their desperate return fire illuminating the chaos. But they were outclassed by the humans' technological edge, and the Vorans' sheer feral savagery. Within minutes, the station's defenses were overrun, its last desperate volley nothing more than a dying gasp. A fusillade of human quantum torpedoes reduced the massive construct to an expanding, silent cloud of wreckage, a final defiant explosion. Across the system, Council ships reeled as their communications were cut, their fleet-wide data network dissolving into white noise. Amidst the disarray, the human and Voran ships pressed their advantage, hammering key targets, shipyards, weapons emplacements, resupply points, with surgical exactitude. On the Indomitable, Logan watched, a grim satisfaction settling over him, as the Council's once tight defensive formation started to fray, their ships floundering to react to threats flaring up across the system. Phase 1 accomplished. Commence Phase 2. The human and Voran fleet regrouped, no longer skirting the main Council armada, but driving straight at it, weapons hot. Logan opened a channel to the Council flagship. This is Captain Logan Carter of the Earth Sigma Fleet. Your comms are severed, your defenses are buckling, and your fleet is in chaos. Surrender now, and your lives will be spared. There was a protracted silence, heavy with the weight of the moment. Then, a familiar visage filled the screen. Counselor Xanth, his features contorted with spiteful defiance, rage warring with a dawning fear in his eyes. "We will never yield to you, human scum. We will battle to the last vessel, the last warrior, the last gasp." Logan regarded him icily, his own patience exhausted. So be it. He cut the channel and turned to his crew, his voice a lethal whisper. "Signal all ships. No mercy given. Let's end this."
The last stand of the Council. The human and Voran ships plunged into the very heart of the Council fleet, weapons blazing as the alien vessels swarmed to meet them. The void lit up with the glare of 1,000 exploding suns as the two sides clashed, energy beams and missiles crisscrossing the gulf between them. Logan gripped the arms of his command chair as the Indomitable shuddered under a barrage of impacts, its shields flaring with each hit, protesting but holding. On the view screen, a human destroyer erupted into a ball of plasma as a Council dreadnought's siege cannon found its mark. Nearby, a Voran cruiser, trailing flames and debris, rammed a Council frigate, both ships disappearing in a blinding flash of mutual annihilation. "Concentrate fire on their command ships," Logan barked, his eyes never leaving the tactical display, a grim focus tightening his features. "We cut off the head, the body dies." The human fleet shifted formation, the Indomitable at the very tip of the spear, as they bore down on the Council's leadership vessels. The alien ships, in a desperate, valiant effort, moved to screen their commanders, pouring a storm of fire into the human advance. A Council battleship, its hull already pitted and scorched, loomed before the Indomitable, its grav cannons hammering relentlessly at the human dreadnought's shields. Logan gritted his teeth as consoles sparked and exploded around him, the bridge filling with acrid smoke. "Divert power to forward shields and weapons," he commanded, his voice cutting through the chaos, an unwavering rock amidst the storm. Samir's hands flew over his console, his brow furrowed in fierce concentration. There, a fluctuation in their aft shield grid. Coordinates, Gamma 615. The Indomitable swung hard to starboard, its prow aimed squarely at the Council battleship's stern. A heartbeat later, its guns erupted, a searing lance of concentrated energy, scorching across the void to impact directly on the weak point in the alien ship's defenses. For a moment, nothing happened, a terrifying breath held in the vastness of space. Then, the Council vessel seemed to bulge outward, cracks racing across its massive hull as secondary explosions chained through its interior. Through the expanding field of debris, Logan caught a glimpse of the Council flagship, a massive dreadnought, bristling with weapons, still defiant amidst the carnage. Xanth's ship, the very seat of the Council's power and arrogance. Logan leaned forward in his chair, his eyes narrowing, a predator scenting its kill. "All ships, converge on the flagship. It's time to cut the head off the snake." The human and Voran ships smashed into the remnants of the Council armada, weapons blazing. Beams of searing energy sliced through enemy hulls, missiles corkscrewed through the void to detonate. The last stand of the Council continued. Against failing shields and blossoms of fire, the Council ships returned fire, a desperate, final defiance. But the Allies' advanced technology and sheer ferocity overwhelmed them. At the heart of the chaos, the Indomitable and Xanth's flagship pounded each other in a vicious duel, a dance of death between two titans. Lances of crackling energy arced back and forth between the mighty vessels, chewing through armor, boiling away hull plating. On the Indomitable's bridge, a console exploded in a shower of sparks, blinding momentarily. Logan gripped his command chair as the deck shuddered violently beneath him, the very bones of the ship screaming in protest. Yet the Indomitable's guns thundered in response, a relentless barrage hammering into the Council flagship's stern. The enemy ship's shields flared, flickered, then died under the onslaught. Flame blossomed from its engine section as the Indomitable's weapons found their mark. The flagship spun out of control, trailing debris and plasma like a dying star, but it was too late. The Dreadnought's main gun, a gargantuan particle beam cannon, unleashed its fury. The Indomitable's shields flared brilliantly for an instant before collapsing entirely. The beam slammed into the ship's bow, burning through decks, vaporizing bulkheads, leaving utter devastation in its wake. The bridge dissolved into chaos, panels detonating, spewing flame and shrapnel. Crewmen were hurled from their stations as the deck heaved violently. Logan dragged himself upright, blood running into his eyes from a gash on his forehead, the metallic tang sharp in the smoke-filled air. Damage reports flooded in, hull breaches, weapons disabled, engines crippled. But the Dreadnought pressed its attack, bracketing the wounded Indomitable with salvo after punishing salvo. Logan could only watch helplessly as his ship shuddered and burned under the onslaught, his vengeance, his very mission, slipping away.
Then, a miracle. A squadron of Voran cruisers, seeing the Indomitable's desperate plight, broke formation and charged the Dreadnought, guns blazing with primal fury. Caught off guard, its shields already strained from its duel with the Indomitable, the Council ship's defenses swiftly crumbled under the concentrated fire. The Voran ships swarmed over it like enraged wasps, explosions stippling the Dreadnought's hull as the Voran zeroed in on its weapons and engines with merciless precision. In minutes, the once unstoppable warship was reduced to a shattered hulk, drifting lifelessly amidst the debris. A ragged cheer went up on the Indomitable's battered bridge. Logan sagged back in his chair, exhausted and bloody, but alive. He surveyed the battle space where the Council fleet, shaken by the destruction of its flagship and the Dreadnought, was falling back in disarray. "Ceasefire," Logan ordered wearily, his voice hoarse. "Commence rescue and recovery. And someone, bring me a damage assessment." He closed his eyes briefly, the weight of the victory settling upon him. "We've carried the day. But this war is far from finished." The unfinished war. In the aftermath of the Titanic battle, the Indomitable drifted in space, her hull scored by energy blasts, great rents torn in her armored sides. Damage control teams rushed through the corridors, sealing breaches and rerouting power from shattered conduits. On the bridge, Logan conferred with his chief engineer, poring over damage reports on a flickering screen. "Route all available power to the repair drones," Logan ordered. "Prioritize hull integrity and engine function. We need to be battle-ready as soon as possible." As the crew worked feverishly to bring the mighty ship back to fighting form, the rest of the fleet limped into view, many vessels bearing the scars of the ferocious engagement. Voran ships, their angular hulls adorned with vibrant war paint, docked with the Indomitable, disgorging hordes of boisterous warriors onto the human ship's decks. In the main hangar, a raucous celebration was underway as the Voran toasted their victory, clashing their weapons together and downing great flagons of potent, shimmering liquor. Human crew members, caught up in the infectious spirit, joined in the revelry, trading war stories and claps on the back with their fierce allies. But even as the festivities reached a fever pitch, urgent communications began flooding the Indomitable's comm channels. Logan, his face grim, called his senior staff to the briefing room. "Reports are coming in from across the galaxy," he said, his voice tight. "With the Council's central fleet destroyed and their comms in disarray, uprisings are breaking out on dozens of worlds. Long-oppressed species are rising against their Council masters." Samir, his eyes alight with a fierce hope, leaned forward. "This is the chance we've been waiting for, sir. The Council is reeling. If we strike now, hard and fast, we could end their tyranny once and for all." Logan nodded, his tactical mind racing. He turned to the Voran commander, a grizzled warrior with a jagged scar bisecting his face. "What say you, Commander Trax? Your people have suffered under the Council's yoke for centuries. Will you fight with us in this final push?"
Trax bared his fangs in a fierce grin, a sound that was both predatory and exhilarating. "The Voran are with you, human. Our blades are thirsty for Council blood. Give the word and we will unleash the full fury of our wrath." Logan stood, his eyes hard as flint. "Then it's settled. Then it's decided. We'll launch a coordinated assault on the Council's key strongholds. We'll hit them from all sides, cut off the head of the snake. It's time to finish this, once and for all."
The Doomsday Device. As the fleet leaders departed to brief their crews and prepare for the coming offensive, an urgent hail blinked on Logan's personal comm. He frowned, stepping into a private alcove to take the call. The face that appeared on the screen was haggard, drawn with fear and exhaustion. It was one of Logan's covert operatives, deep in Council space. "Captain," the operative whispered, glancing over his shoulder as if afraid of being overheard, "I have urgent news. Councillor Xanth, he's alive. He escaped the destruction of his flagship." Logan's blood ran cold. "What? How?" "I don't know, sir, but he's rallying the remnants of the Council's forces, preparing for a counterattack. And, Captain, there's more." The operative licked his lips, his voice trembling. "Xanth has a weapon, some kind of doomsday device. They say it has the power to destroy entire star systems. He's threatening to use it if the Council's rule is truly broken." Logan's fist clenched, his knuckles white. The stakes had just gotten unimaginably higher. If Xanth was allowed to unleash this weapon— "Understood," he said, his voice like gravel. "Keep me informed." As the fleet jumped to hyperspace, the stars blurring into streaks of light, Logan stared out the viewport, his jaw tight. They were headed for a remote, heavily defended Council base, where Xanth was reportedly holed up with his apocalyptic weapon. It would be a mission fraught with danger, a desperate race against annihilation. But as Logan looked around at the faces of his crew, hard and determined, he felt a flicker of hope amid the dread. They were humanity's champions, the tip of the spear. If anyone could pull this off, it was them. The Indomitable dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Council base's sensor range. Logan turned to his tactical officer. "Initiate full stealth protocols," he ordered. "Not so much as a whisper, you understand." As the mighty ship slipped into the shadow of an orbiting moon, its sensor-absorbent coating rendering it all but invisible, Logan gathered his strike team in the armory. They were the best of the best, each one hand-picked for their skills and courage. As they checked their weapons and armor, an electric tension filled the air, a cold anticipation. Logan met each of their eyes in turn, his gaze unwavering. "You all know the stakes," he said quietly. "If we fail, if Xanth deploys that weapon, there's no coming back from that." He placed a hand on the nearest soldier's shoulder, his grip firm. "But we will not fail. We can't. The fate of the galaxy rests on our shoulders." The strike team nodded as one, their faces set with iron resolve. They knew the odds, knew the risks, but they also knew their duty. As the Indomitable glided silently toward the looming council base, Logan felt a chill run down his spine. Somewhere in that sprawling complex of steel and shadows, Xanth was waiting, his finger poised over the trigger of damnation. It would be a battle unlike any they had faced before, a desperate struggle in the heart of the enemy's power. But as Logan checked the charge on his plasma rifle, he allowed himself a grim smile. The Council had underestimated humanity for the last time. One way or another, this ended today.
The final confrontation. The Indomitable glided silently through the void, a predator stalking its prey. On the bridge, Logan stood tense and ready, his eyes fixed on the view screen displaying the Council base, growing larger by the second. "Prepare for breach," he ordered, his voice low and steady. His hand-picked strike team, the best of the best, checked their weapons one final time, faces set with grim determination. As the ship closed in, the base's defenses came to life, energy cannons and missile batteries swiveling to lock on. But the Indomitable was ready, its advanced stealth technology rendering it all but invisible to the enemy sensors. "Fire the EMP!" Logan commanded. A pulse of blue-white energy erupted from the ship's prow, washing over the base in a cascading wave. In an instant, the defenses fell silent, their power systems fried. "Go, go, go!" Logan roared, leading the charge as the strike team surged forward, breaching pods slamming into the base's hull. They cut through the outer bulkheads like a plasma torch through butter, spilling the team into the corridors beyond. Alarms blared and emergency lights flashed as the Council's elite guards rallied to meet the intruders. Plasma fire crisscrossed the halls, the air thick with the stench of ozone and burnt flesh as the two forces clashed. Logan was a whirlwind of motion, his rifle spitting blue death as he advanced, his team close behind. They pushed deeper into the labyrinthine base, leaving a trail of broken bodies in their wake. But the Council guards were relentless, pouring into the corridors like an endless tide. For everyone that fell, two more seemed to take their place, forcing the strike team to fight for every inch of ground. Logan gritted his teeth as a plasma bolt sizzled past his head, close enough to singe his hair. He dropped to one knee, snapping off a spray of shots that sent a guard tumbling, a smoking hole in his chest. All around him, his team was locked in desperate struggles, the close quarters leaving no room for error. He saw Sergeant Hawkins grappling with a hulking alien, the two rolling on the ground in a tangle of limbs. Private Zhang fell, clutching at the blackened ruin of her leg, her screams mixing with the cacophony of battle. But still, they pushed on, driven by a determination that bordered on madness. They had come too far, sacrificed too much to fail now. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of blood and fire, they reached the heart of the base. The doors to the central command center loomed before them, massive and imposing. Logan didn't hesitate. He slapped a breaching charge on the unyielding metal and stood back, his finger hovering over the detonator. "Breach in 3, 2, 1. The world dissolved into smoke and thunder as the charge blew, ripping the doors from their frame. Logan was moving before the echoes faded, storming into the room beyond with his rifle raised. And there, standing amidst a bank of consoles and holographic displays, was Counselor Xanth. The alien's face twisted into a cruel smile as he saw Logan, his hand hovering over a large, ominous control panel. "You're too late, human," he gloated, his voice dripping with malice. "With a single command, I can unleash the doomsday device and reduce your precious—" Logan leveled his weapon at the counselor, his finger tightening on the trigger. "It's over, Xanth. Step away from the panel." But Xanth only laughed, a manic gleam in his eyes. "You think you've won? You think your little rebellion means anything? The Council's power is absolute, and I will see it restored, even if I have to destroy 1,000 worlds to do it." His hand slammed down on the control panel, the sound echoing through the sudden silence. But nothing happened. No alarms, no flashing lights, no indication that the doomsday device had been activated. Xanth's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. He jabbed at the controls again and again, growing more frantic with each failed attempt. He whirled to face Logan, his face a mask of rage and confusion. Logan allowed himself a small, grim smile. "Did you really think we'd come here without a plan?" he asked softly. "While you were focused on us, our operatives were hacking your systems, disabling your weapon. It's over, Xanth. You've lost." For a long moment, Xanth just stared, his mouth working soundlessly. Then, with a scream of pure animalistic fury, he lunged at Logan, a hidden blade sliding from his sleeve. Logan met him head-on, blocking the alien strike with his rifle. The two leaders grappled, trading blows with brutal efficiency, as the command center shuddered around them, rocked by the ongoing space battle overhead. They crashed into consoles, sparks flying as delicate equipment shattered under their weight. Logan felt the bite of Xanth's blade, a line of fire across his ribs, but he pushed through the pain, retaliating with a vicious elbow to the alien's throat. Xanth staggered back, gasping, and Logan pressed his advantage. A swift kick to the knee, a hammer blow to the temple, and the counselor was down, his blade.
For a long, tense moment, Logan just stared at him, his rifle unwavering. The temptation was there, burning in his veins like molten lead. To end it here, to repay all the pain and suffering the Council had inflicted with a single justified pull of the trigger. But even as his finger tightened, a flicker of movement caught his eye. He turned, and what he saw turned his blood to ice in his veins. The doomsday device's power core, a pulsating sphere of dark energy, was fluctuating wildly. Arcs of electricity crawled across its surface. Warning lights flashed urgent red, and the low, ominous hum of building charge filled the air. In an instant, Logan understood. In the chaos of the fight, a stray shot or errant blow must have damaged the containment field. The core was destabilizing rapidly, its energies building to a cataclysmic release. Logan's mind raced, desperately seeking a solution, but he already knew there wasn't one. Not enough time to evacuate, not enough time to try and repair the damage. Only one path remained, a last, desperate gamble. He turned to his strike team, the survivors of that hellish advance. They looked back at him, battered and bloodied, but unbroken, ready for whatever came next. "Get back to the ship," he ordered, his voice rough with emotion. "All of you, get as far away from here as you can." "But sir," Sergeant Hawkins protested, stepping forward, his face etched with concern. "What about you?" Logan met his gaze, a sad smile tugging at his lips. "I'll stay behind. Try to contain the blast. Buy you as much time as I can." Understanding dawned in the sergeant's eyes, followed by a flash of anguish. He started to argue, but Logan cut him off with a raised hand.
That's an order, Hawkins. Get our people out. It's the only way. For a long, painful moment, the two men just stared at each other. A lifetime of service and sacrifice passing between them. Then, slowly, Hawkins nodded, tears glistening in his eyes. "It's been an honor, sir," he said softly, snapping a crisp salute. Logan returned the salute, his vision blurring. "The honor was mine." One by one, the strike team filed out, each pausing to offer their own farewell. A clasp of the hand, a murmured word of thanks. Logan watched them go, pride and sorrow warring in his chest. Finally, he was alone. The command center silent, save for the ominous hum of the destabilizing core. He turned to face it, squaring his shoulders against the rising tide of fear. He thought of Earth, the rolling green hills of his childhood home.
Conclusion. The supernova of energy that erupted from the Council base ripped through the void, a blinding testament to Logan Carter's sacrifice. His final act bought his crew, and indeed the nascent human-Voran alliance, precious moments to escape. In the immediate aftermath, the Council's remaining forces, utterly demoralized and leaderless, crumbled. The uprisings across the galaxy swelled into a full-scale revolution, with the human and Voran fleets leading the charge. Without their central command and fearsome doomsday weapon, the Council's iron grip shattered, freeing countless oppressed species. Humanity, once confined, became liberators. The Sigma fleet, no longer a myth but a symbol of defiant strength, patrolled the newly liberated sectors, ensuring that the Council's tyranny would never again take root. A new galactic order began to emerge, one built on mutual respect and shared freedom, albeit one forged in the fires of conflict. The war was over, but the work of building a better galaxy was just beginning. The memory of Logan Carter, the captain who chose sacrifice over vengeance, became a legend whispered among the stars, a reminder that even in the darkest hours, a single act of courage can change the fate of an entire universe.